Welcome to Dr. Akmal Makhdum's YouTube channel. He is a psychiatrist, a social commentator, and author. Today, we are going to be discussing the horrific news that has recently come out of Pakistan about the two rapes, one of the 5-year-old girl in Karachi and the mother of 3 on the motorway. So, Dr. Akmal Makhdum, first give us a little bit of background of what happened so our viewers who aren't from Pakistan know, and then your thoughts on the situation right now.
Well, I only know about the facts of these two events from what everybody's read in the newspapers or on television. That there was a 5-year-old who went out to buy ice cream, and she vanished. And then they found her all molested, burnt, killed, tortured. And then there was this gang rape of 35-year-old, presumably 35-year-old lady with 3 children who ran short of petrol on one part of the motorway and experienced this horrific crime. So that's all I know about it, and people have all the information otherwise.
Right. So now that you've put out the facts for us, what is happening? Why is this happening in Pakistan?
Well, the thing is, there are two massive questions here.
Yeah.
What is happening and why is happening? Why is something which requires a detailed review? It's not a simple explanation. What is happening is that it's not really something new. Um, Child rape and murder, child molestation, pedophilia, and cruelty to children is something that we are not ready to confront in Pakistan or in a Pakistani community because it brings a great deal of shame. Um, in terms of brutalization of children, beating up children, sexual molestation of children, it is as rampant as anywhere else. The only thing is that when, due to social media or due to some other factor, these things are brought to the fore, and then there is this huge reaction, this what they call righteous indignation. And I use this righteous indignation in quote unquote because the indignant are the ones who also perpetrate these things. So one thing we must try to understand, and one we must try to accept, is that this is not an uncommon occurrence in Pakistan and in Pakistani society. Cruelty to children, physical abuse in the garb of paternal and maternal love, that we beat you because we love you, we stop you because we have your best interest at heart. These are the norms of our society. So I think that these are very large subjects and very cruel and extremely uncomfortable subjects. And I'm sure that people will not agree and feel very aggrieved that this is being said. But if you look at the number of police reports and number of anecdotal reports, people are constantly confronted with cruelty and kidnapping of children. I remember that when I was young myself, a very small child, the idea of children being kidnapped and their arms chopped off so they could become beggars, and they would be used on the street, and other cruelty to children was also extremely prevalent and common.
Well, that these are still the stories that we hear today. When I moved to
And
Pakistan, that's
so
what.
the idea is that it is not something that the society is incapable of doing.
Right.
The people in that society are capable of doing the most heinous and most cruel things to children, and they do it all the time. So this idea that the 5-year-old is the only one is You just go back a few weeks and a few months and a few years, and you'll see dozens and dozens and dozens. And the thing is that most interesting thing is that there was this chap called Javed Iqbal, and he was arrested some years ago that he had raped and murdered and dissolved the bodies of 100 children in Lahore. Now, the thing is that people were saying, oh, how horrific, and how it could be done, and how could anybody be able to do that. But the point is, what did we learn from it? Where are the uh, social and law enforcement and educational processes? But the one question that I asked myself at that time, where were those 100 parents protesting on the streets whose children had gone off? But the point is that they weren't protesting. The children had run off because of domestic violence. Hundreds and thousands of children every year leave their homes because their parents beat them black and blue.
Right. So we hear about, so in the West, let's talk about England, that's where we are. You hear about these stories. People talk about these things. There's law and order, etc. We won't touch upon the law and order situation just now, but
Right.
as you mentioned, it seems every year there's one or two stories that will come out and everyone will get up in arms.
Yeah.
This time round, we've seen a lot of protests being organized and taken to the streets. What are your thoughts on that?
So let's separate the two.
Okay.
There isn't much protest about the 5-year-old. The protest was only temporary, transient, and maybe once. So let's separate the child cruelty.
Okay.
That is something which is endemic. And it is happening in the religious seminaries. And it is happening in every household. And it is happening all over the place. And that is the elephant that the society isn't seeing. So that's one. The protest that is happening about a middle class lady, an educated lady who went out in a supposedly posh area, sort of educated class, upper echelons of society. And basically, the point is that we see the protest coming from that group of people, those who are educated, vocal, and because they feel that they themselves will be at risk if nothing is done. In terms of murder, mass murder of poor children, is something that a society which has not budged and has not created anything to prevent 100 children murdered by one man.
And isn't the only reason he got caught because he turned himself in?
He did, yes.
So otherwise,
Yeah,
Lord knows how
nobody
many.
knew about it. And so, and of course, the easiest thing was that conveniently he fell off the police building and died.
Right.
And so the thing is that here what you see, so I just want to park that, but I want to park it alive. That is a discussion we must have. We must not bring these two discussions together.
Right, okay.
And so the important thing is that here the gang rape of this lady is attack on the educated middle class, the dynamo of any society, and people who are vocal and active.
Right.
So that is why you see, because every educated woman with children who drives and wants to drive and wants to have the freedom to drive and wants to have the freedom of movement feels that she could be the next victim of gang rape in that society, which gang rapes rural women with impunity. In Punjab, Sindh, Frontier Province, and Balochistan, murder, murder because of uh, so-called honor, which of course is the most dishonorable thing that people do, gang rape to instill violence and humiliation on a society, on a group of people, on a particular faction of society in the tribal areas. That is endemic, that is normal. So the thing is that what we see now is a crime which is urban, where a lot of money is poured into police services, where all the established civilization of Pakistan exists. That's when you attack that middle class core, where comes all the educated and the resource of society. That's where the where it is hit a raw nerve.
Right. That's a very, very interesting point. I actually never saw that. And when you've said it, it's true and it's quite sad and shocking that it takes, until your own comfort is disturbed, then we don't really do much.
No.
So now let's talk about the community that this little girl was from. Now, before with the other one, you said, where are the protests? Where are the parents? You keep, you went through an education quite a few times, educated class, etc. Why? How do we not know? How do we know that the community where this girl is from is not protesting?
I'm uncomfortable with this line of questioning. I tell you why. You've used the same thing that I wanted to separate
No, what?
between the child and the adult. The thing is that with the child, education and responsibility is entirely different. A 5-year-old allowed to leave the house unsupervised is an unforgivable criminal negligence on the part of parents who know that these things are happening. The idea that now, would the mother of that 5-year-old get all her jewels out, the gold, and hand over that gold to the child and say, okay, you take that gold out there and walk about, just loiter around. She won't do that.
Yeah.
The husband would not let the wife go out to be the chaperone of the child, lest some other evil eye looks at his precious wife. So the mother is not able to go out and look after the child because she is a pardadar. She is in a veil. She can't go out. So what I'm trying to say is that a mother is happily sitting at home, allowing a 5-year-old to go with money unsupervised. Who is the most valuable commodity, if you may, or the most valuable existence in your family is your child. The thing is that the child is helpless. That is where what I feel is that education, I mean, what kind of education? Even animals, dogs look after their children. They don't allow strangers to come near them. Even tigers and wolves and hyenas will not allow a stranger come near their young, and they will lay down their lives in protecting their children. What kind of human being would allow small children to go unsupervised? Now, the thing is that people talk a lot about these things, that I may have said these, and that's why I want to separate the adult from the child. The scenario with the child is an entirely different, it's a totally different world.
Okay.
It's a totally different social game. It's a totally different scenario at all, completely.
Conversation to have.
Yeah. So the thing is that in terms of the child, I think that what we must do, as is the case in all civilized countries, the first world countries, can you leave a 10-year-old at home alone?
In England, no.
In England, no. You will go to jail.
Yeah.
The child will be removed and taken by social services. Can you ask a 5-year-old to walk about on the street? The whole neighborhood will be up in arms. You will be arrested by the police for criminal negligence. I can tell you one story, you know about it, that one of our friends in Colchester, the son, climbed through the fence and went into the neighbor's place, and the police was called. that the boy, mother was cooking inside, and he just sneaked through the fence.
I don't
And
remember.
so the scenario is that, there was police there and they were searching and this and that, because that's where what you need to do is to the most vulnerable in society is the child. You cannot allow children to go unsupervised. Now, there are two things here. There is the responsibility of the parent or the grandparent or whoever is there of a 24-hour eyeball on the child. There is no 23-hour responsibility. It's a 24-hour responsibility. Now, then there is the crime.
Right,
There are
okay.
two different things.
Right, okay, that's fine. So let's not go into the child thing and let's focus on the. So anyway, we actually have run out of time with this one, but this
So
is
I
good.
think we've focused, slightly toward the latter part on the child, and I think that is very important. And we need to separate.
Yes.
These two things are not equitable. They are not equivalent. There is no equivalence between how children are, badly treated, and how adults are badly treated. There are two social scenarios and two legal scenarios which are separate.
Absolutely, and we will discuss them separately in the next upcoming videos. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, do write to us, subscribe, and like. Thank you.